Hello, my name is Noah Ravoy, and you found the best source for advice about love, life, and relationships. Today I'm talking about the absolute state of masculinity. We are facing an age where masculinity is being denigrated, attacked, and there is a real attempt to destroy men's concept of masculinity and make it something that men aren't interested in. We are even seeing this pushed from large organizations like the BBC, and I'm going to show you a video in a moment that exemplifies the kind of anti-masculinity propaganda that's become very popular.
You hear a lot about toxic masculinity, and I only use that phrase once in the book to explain why I tend to avoid it. And it's because, and bear with me, this will sound very harsh, the reason I don't say toxic masculinity is because it implies there's something good about masculinity. Now, I'm not down on men. I think men are terrific. Men can be magnificent. Men can behave disgracefully. Men, like women, most of us are just these farty humans going around trying to have a reasonable life and not causing too much harm and frying eggs and, just being a person. But masculinity, the way you're supposed to perform it, I just don't know what is it apart from, what does it add up to apart from being not woman?
I think that's about all we need to hear from
medallions.
him. But not everyone dislikes masculinity. One of my clients wrote this. She says, "I love masculine men down to my bones. And not in a romantic way only, but in the way you love a beautiful sunrise, or the first glimpse of the Rocky Mountains after a long trip, or a long-awaited dinner served with friends, with almost a painful ache of gratitude and humility. I love a man's hands, rough and strong and capable. I love a man's arms, strong and lean and graceful. I love the wideness of a man's shoulders, the uprightness of his posture, the ease with which a man carries himself, with confidence and lightness. I love the stubble on a man's face in the morning or the evening, and how even the most serious man's face is brightened by a real and genuine and spontaneous smile. I love how their eyes light up when they explain something to me for the first time, or tell me about their interest, share an exciting and impressive story with me. I like the care with which they style their hair. I love their deep voices, and I love to make a serious man laugh or tease a playful man. Because I love men, I know one will love me in return. It's a law of attraction. Masculinity, despite all the propaganda, still has value." And today we're going to be talking with our guest, Jennifer Krauss, about the absolute state of masculinity and what men and women can do to show appreciation for masculinity and to fight the anti-male propaganda that's so popular. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, Noah. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. What a great topic.
Yeah, I think it's a very important topic. There is literally billions of dollars being spent in an effort to destroy men's sense of masculinity. And really, it's just trying to destroy men's sense of themselves, of who they are. It's not simply a matter of reshaping culture or making some minor adjustment to cultural norms. It's really destroying one of the two foundations of humanity, that is the masculine and feminine side.
I completely agree. It's very scary. I mean, if you do not have that attraction, you do not have civilization. And from my point of view, from Fascinating Womanhood and what we try to do in that group, which is what we call the pro-feminine movement, is inspiring masculinity. And I just love what your client had written about masculinity. I have to agree with every single point. And I'll just share too, I have a first husband and I am currently married to my second husband. But my first husband, both of them are very masculine men. And my first husband, I would go to say he's the bad boy. And it's one reason why if women are not protected by fathers and brothers, that they can make the wrong choice in marrying a very protective masculine man like the bad boy. I mean, I was obsessed with his arms. I mean, it's so true, with his strength and with his overprotectiveness and wonderful masculine qualities. But what needed to happen was, and Noah, you and I have talked about this, is sort of dad or brother coming in and saying this it's great, this is a masculine guy, but he might not be the right one for you.
Yeah, it's traditionally women had a lot of protection from, they would have their fathers, their older siblings, their uncles, and even the women in the family would act as gatekeepers to try to filter out who was able to even present themselves to young women. And the other thing was that women had, in general, at least one very good example of masculinity in their family. So if their father wasn't exactly the perfect example, they'd have a grandfather or an uncle. And nowadays, we're so fragmented. Families don't spend time together within the nuclear family, let alone within the extended family. And so young women and young men, they miss out on this opportunity to be exposed to masculinity and to understand what it is and to develop an appreciation for it. What do you think women can do to demonstrate that they appreciate masculinity and therefore to attract masculine men into their lives?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Okay, speaking to the women, we have to reclaim our femininity. And we do that by, I can only speak from my experience and the women that I teach and coach. And that is that because anybody under 60 years and younger, we've been raised very much in feminist culture with feminist ideology. And so being a child of the 70s, and I was raised by a very masculine man, but the problem was the parents of that era too. My parents are very traditional, very masculine father, very masculine brother. They were afraid to help me. It was so counterculture in the time, in the 80s. But anyway, what women can do to reclaim their femininity when you have been living as either a feminist, which many of my clients are ex-feminists, and they love what we're doing at Fascinating Womanhood. They love the classes. First, you start with, we're talking about femininity. Femininity inspires masculinity. It is a choice to become a more feminine woman. And so you must study what femininity is, because you probably haven't been taught what it is, and you've been taught that it's weakness. When femininity, your weakness is your strength. There is nothing more powerful for women than your femininity. And men need it desperately. And you will feel so wonderful and fulfilled when you begin to walk in this role. And it's going to feel very strange at first, like it did for me. When at the time I was working in a corporate office, and I stopped with the dark colors and the suits and things like that, and I walked into work the first day in a very floral dress and red shoes and big hair, and I mean, it was an amazing transformation. It was an amazing day. I'll never forget it. And men treated me completely different. So did my husband. It saved my marriage. And it begins within. So women, we step into it every morning. It's a choice, and it begins with character. And we do a major study, Noah, of the ideal woman from a man's point of view, which includes understanding men, first off, and what they find attractive. And you can't change that just because you say, well, you shouldn't be attracted, Noah, to a very feminine woman. Doesn't mean that you're not going to be. I mean, it goes against nature.
Yeah, and this is something, nature, whether you believe in evolution or that we were created, this is something that's been around since the foundation of humanity. Or if you believe in evolution, since the beginning of biological life. We are attracted to certain things in women because we see what's going to make a good mother. And that's what is feminine women are good mothers, because they have that nurturing, caring, soft, gentle nature that babies need. And it's, even if a woman is too old to have children, we still see that as being very valuable. Men still deeply value femininity. Even if to some degree feminism has reduced the interest of women in masculinity. Men now are complaining about the attack on masculinity, but the attack on femininity came first.
Yep.
That started with the very, very early days of feminism, right away attacking the feminine role of women, the natural role for them would have made them happy. And now they're moving on to deeply attacking men as well. They've taken out one half of what makes civilization work, and they're going for the other half. And I really like what you're saying about how femininity inspires masculinity. And I think it's that, that the Asians call it yin and yang. So
Yep.
the masculinity inspires femininity and vice versa. And I'm not going to fix the world. Men aren't going to fix the world, and women aren't going to fix the world. We're going to fix the world together. There needs to be a certain level of cooperation there. There is something that men can do. There is something that women can do. And at a certain point, that starts to combine. And that's what really makes the power of returning people to happy roles, to happy gender roles. I don't generally find feminists that are happy. It's a real meme on the internet with people will juxtapose a Twitter feed where a woman will brag about being a feminist, and then one from 3 days later where she's almost suicidal. And it's a meme that just keeps repeating itself. You can't be happy when you're living a life that is unnatural and does not satisfy your deep needs.
Very true. And I know because I lived it, and I really didn't find fulfillment until I read Fascinating Womanhood and decided to change how I thought about who I was supposed to be in the world, regardless of what I was being told. And it's very, very hard. It's very scary. We have a lot of fear about this. And so that's why it's important to be a part of a group of women to encourage you to make these changes, because you're going to begin to embrace what you knew was true all along. And I really believe that even though you deny these feelings your whole life, that deep down in your little inner child, your little girl in there, she wanted this to begin with. And the thing is that it doesn't mean that you're weak and subservient slaves. I mean, where that came from, I'll never know. But femininity is the most strong characteristics that women have. We can handle an incredible amount of pain. We're extremely patient. There's so many great qualities. And I want to say no too. I mean, I know men love femininity and it inspires masculinity, but men need us. Your husband, your boyfriend, your fathers, they need you to be a nurturer, because they're going off into the world as you are, but experiencing it in a way, more harsh way. And we need to be the nurturers of the home, the creators of the home, in that it's a comfortable, loving, supportive atmosphere, so a man can come home and let down and recharge. I mean, why else would anyone go out to work but to come home? We're all trying to get home, to relax, to enjoy the comforts of home, but nobody's at home anymore.
Can you imagine returning to a woman who has the feelings of those sentiments that were expressed by my client there? For a man, you return home to that, and men with happy marriages, they don't stay out, they don't go after work out to a bar and stay there until midnight. They want to come home. They look forward to coming home and spending time with their wife and their children, and it brings them deep joy. And it's women that can create that environment in the home. Men can't do that. We're out at work. We're out doing other things. We can't do that. And even working women, there are ways that they can improve how they create that at home. There are ways they can balance things out. And when the children are very little, it's almost impossible to work full time and look after children. But as the children get more independent, a lot of women they enjoy working, but there are still things they can do to make sure that the home is a place that when everyone comes back, the children as well come back, that it's a place that they can recharge. Life in many ways is more stressful than it's ever been in history. Our ancestors had to deal with the potential, of being eaten by an alligator or a lion or something. So we have a little bit different stress. But we have this constant information overload. We have constant noise. We have constantly to keep attention to everything. And when we come home, we want peace. We want quiet. We want a nice smell. We want cleanliness. We want order and organization and beauty. I think a lot of people underestimate how important a beautiful home is. You know, when you look, for example, the background, what you have there, things are harmonious. There is a color scheme. It is attractive, and that is relaxing. That is psychologically calming. And many people today, they have no calm in their life. They're so anxious all the time because they have nowhere to go to retreat. They're on all the time.
And so I want to say too, Noah, that's right on. And then so the man knowing that the woman is home, and I just spent time with Dixie and Bob Forsyth, and they were explaining the woman is the garden. We're about growth and creation, and there may be some chaos in that as well. But the man is the wall around the garden. Without the wall protecting the garden, it'd be a mess.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
And so females, I mean, we are just great at doing this. We need quiet. We are very much more affected by stress than men. I don't care what anybody says.
Yes.
Women
Absolutely.
are very sensitive. We can feel the emotion of the room the minute we walk in it. Women are extremely intuitive. I think it has to do a lot with the water that we have in our body and the more fat cells, but that's another thing.
Well, and women have to intuit the subtle emotions of a child crying. Why is he crying? Is he hungry? Does he need diaper change? Does it just need a hug? Men rarely have to get that subtle differences. Men are very straightforward. If one guy wants to knock another man in the face, it's pretty obvious what he wants long before it happens. If a man wants to work with another, cooperate with another, we're very open about what we want. And children aren't. They can't communicate so well, and so women have to have that ability to understand non-direct communication very clearly. And it's whereas men, it's very important that we communicate clearly to avoid misunderstandings and to keep the peace. But yeah, I like how you say we're the wall around the garden. And I think men today are frustrated and they want to give up. A lot of men, they want to give up and say, look, I'm just going to go my own way. I'm going to forget about women. I'm going to forget about my genetic future. And I've given up.
Yeah.
The reality is that means you also end up giving up on your masculinity. Because part of your masculinity is fulfilling your genetic imperative to have a wife and have children. And if you give up on that, you're giving up on one of the most important things in life. And for men, a lot of men tell me, oh, well, all women are, and they will make a description of what you and I would both agree is not a very fascinating woman. And I will explain to them that they're doing things to attract the wrong kind of women and to repel good women. Mm-hmm. Men who are truly masculine and who have high standards and set, as you mentioned, the boundaries. We are the boundaries in civilization. We say, this is the rules and no further. And when men are very clearly, we say that, don't hide your power level. So what we say with men, if you have boundaries for behavior, don't hide that. Don't allow people to trample those. No. You will attract wonderful women into your life. All the women in my life are wonderful. The women I work with, the women I spend time with. And it's not me being, exaggerating or easy with them. I have very high standards. But that's why I have good women in my life. And I don't tolerate bad women. And men can be taught how to set those boundaries, how to attract good women. Just like with Fascinating Womanhood, women can be taught what behaviors will attract the best kind of men.
And bring them the most happiness. So just to the beginning of your point, I want to encourage men not to let go of your masculinity ever. And like we did in the 70s, women, that's exactly what I did, Noah, is I said, well, I give up on this femininity thing, even though I know this is what I want to be happy. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to wear the pants in the family. Oh dear. If anybody just knew my story and the tragedy that has all brought me, you would pick up Fascinating Womanhood right now today, men and women, and read it. But, I want men to understand that we're very sorry. There's a huge movement of women who want to say we're sorry for what has happened, even though I didn't personally do this. But we are going to fix it. Women are the gatekeepers to civilization. We're the gatekeepers to procreation, and we need to take it back and get back in the home and right the ship in a way. You know, we do. We really, really do. And I don't know, Noah, the only way we do that is one woman, one man at a time, and encouraging them to live their true self.
Yeah, follow their natural imperative. And it's, you know, there are billions and billions of dollars spent every year propagandizing young women into university, into careers, and away from motherhood.
That's it.
Billions of dollars. How do we, Jennifer, with our little budgets and our YouTube channels, how do we compete with that? Well, the fact is they're trying to create something that is unnatural. And we are working with people's natural biological urges. We have the advantage. In many ways, we have the advantage, but that doesn't mean we can't do, you know, we can just relax. We have to fight. And my focus is on teaching men how to be masculine and helping women to find masculine men. And you're focused on helping women to be feminine and how to attract the right kind of men into their lives as well in some cases, and how to help the men who are already in their lives to be the best men that they can be. And this is how we do it. We each have our own projects. We each put our own piece of the puzzle, and we're not the only ones. There's hundreds of other people out there. Basically, feminism ran unopposed until the mid-2000s, you know, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That's when really the opposition to feminism began.
I just heard that nearby on Saturday there's an Antifa. I'm in the South right now at South Carolina in my parents' home. And Antifa's coming to destroy a statue nearby. And I thought, you know, I'm just going to put my apron on and go over there and give them all a hug. I just need love. I mean, the anger there, it's these women are so, and the guys that are supporting them are so miserable.
Yes, and, very miserable. If you see them without the, you know, I joke that they wear the mask so we don't see how unhappy they are.
Yeah.
There is a meme going around right now. They call it the NPC meme. So in gaming terminology, an NPC is a non-player character. It's basically a robot that interacts in the background of a game and makes it appear that there is a lot of people in the game. And the joke is that a lot of people are operating as if they were NPCs. So they're operating based on external programming that someone gave them, and they're unable to make their own decisions. They have no internal monologue that says, you know, maybe it's not a good idea to do whatever it is they're going to do, and to help them to truly think. It's kind of like they don't have a driver, you know. Someone else is, they're semi-autonomous. They've been programmed. And I can't imagine someone being happy that way without being in charge of their own lives. How can they possibly be happy? You know, how can they feel a sense of freedom and liberty and satisfaction in the things that they do, and a sense of true personhood when they're simply following someone else's programming? And this was based on some scientific studies that said the majority of people are at least partially operating as if they don't have independent will. Now, I'm not saying humans don't have independent will, but many people choose not to exercise their agency. And when they do that, that's when we get problems, you know, Antifa tearing down statues. They probably have no idea who the statue is of. They don't know the history of it. It's not their statue. Yet they feel entitled to do this because someone told them this is what they should be doing. Feminists, they fell into that. Well, a lot of women fell into that trap. They're doing...
Well, I was sort of one of them.
Yeah.
Vacillating between, well, I really do want to, you know, be a stay-at-home mom, and I just want to get married and have babies. And I'm glad I went to college. Don't get me wrong. That was important. Women needs to be educated. You're raising the people of the world. But I would have done it in a different and a more living in my more feminine self rather than kind of going out to bars, and, you know, it was the 80s, so not a good time.
Well, and nowadays, everything that's taught in university can be found fairly inexpensively on the internet. We can, I even see there's a lot of online universities now. We're starting to get alternatives to universities so that you don't have to rack up a massive debt. I know young ladies who are in their mid-20s and they're 30, 40, 50,000 in debt from university, and they tell me, I want to have a baby, but my entire paycheck goes to pay my university loans for the next 5 years. I'll be 30 by the time I'm done. And they're deeply saddened by this. They could have gotten a very good education either at a less expensive school or online. Reading the right books.
Until, the 15, 18 years, and then gone later after you've done the most wonderful thing in the world, which is find the man of your dreams and have this lifelong love affair with a guy who truly loves you, and having babies, if you're God willing, and to care for them. It doesn't matter if you live in a shack. If you have that, you'll be happy. Women have to let go of materialism. Now,
I actually very strongly suggest, I'm starting to talk a lot more to parents, and I strongly suggest mothers who have daughters take their daughters to a Fascinating Womanhood class. And I think that's possible, isn't it?
Yes, actually, there are class I work with 10 to 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
There's 14 to 18 and 18 and up. So we have the Fascinating Girl program, Fascinating Girl for single women, and of course for mothers. So absolutely.
There are all kinds of programs to encourage women, young girls, for example, to learn about STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. There are programs to encourage them to go to university, to encourage them to be well educated. But a big part of a woman's education that is often missed is how to be a fascinating woman, how to be a wonderful mother, how to be a superb wife. And I do think men are also missing out on certain aspects of that as well. They're not being taught how to do it. And I really think that this is a part of a proper education, a full education. It used to be, there wasn't a need for Fascinating Womanhood 200 years ago because women were taught by their mothers how to do these things and their grandmothers would teach them. Nowadays, you need this. This is supplemental and required.
Every day I have someone send me a message. I know this is going to sound strange, Jenny, but I don't know how to be a woman.
Yep.
Please help me.
I hear the same from men. They won't say it in those exact words, but they're like, they'll describe themselves as losers.
Oh, that's so sad.
It's terrible, and the fact that they're coming to look for help is an indication that they are not losers, because losers don't look for help.
And guess what? It's the woman's fault. Women raise all of the people of the world. Women have raised these unhappy, miserable men. Don't blame men for the unhappiness. Yep.
I've had young men who are overweight, and they're talking to me about this, and they're telling me, and they're very young, or early 20s, late teens, and they're saying to me that this is some sort of failing of theirs. Well, when did you become overweight? Oh, it started when I was 9. If it started when you were 9, it's because your mother was feeding you garbage. Now we got to figure out why she was not feeding you well, and why your father was not insisting that you get more exercise. And when we figure that out, you already know how to lose weight. You'll just want to do it. It'll just melt right off.
That's a whole other way of manipulating and destroying the family, is what they've done with processed food. So that could be a whole other topic.
Oh, yeah.
Food problem, and of course that was how I started my whole coaching practice, was food addiction education.
Well, and the research that I've seen about food addiction is that it's not really about food. The food it's almost like a drug addiction. It's a crutch to help people get over deep psychological scars that they have. And it's difficult for men or women to feel masculine or feminine, to feel who they are when they're overweight. I tell people who are very overweight that they don't yet know who they are until they've lost that weight. Because the way, and in fact, even for men to be physically fit, to be strong, people respond to you differently. You feel better about yourself because of how people look at you. People take you more seriously. They automatically assume that you are wiser and mentally stronger as well, emotionally stronger.
Control. Self-control.
And that you have self-control. And when people start making these assumptions of you, you start living up to the assumptions. And one of my clients, she said recently, a couple of days ago, she says, when we started, she says, it was like I was in a dark room, started the one-on-one coaching. It was like I was in a dark room and I was getting bitten by something, getting attacked. And she says, the coaching helped me turn on the light and see my little demons, which is her programming that she's been given throughout her life, running around. She says, I'm still in a room with this dangerous creatures, but at least I can see them now and start eliminating them one by one.
Wow, and she separated herself from them.
Yes, exactly.
Excellent. That's my first coaching practice was called authentic living, because I really believe it's just getting back to who you were supposed to be in the first place, your really true authentic self.
Yeah.
And I don't mean who you think, if you're born a woman and you think you're a man kind of thing. That's my true authentic self. I'm really a man, even though I was born in a woman's body.
Yeah, your true authentic self cannot be something which is biologically impossible. Reality is important.
It's very sad. I don't mean to laugh, but it's so sad because I've met many, many of these people, and they are just tortured individuals, and a sex change does not help.
No, it's actually, unfortunately now, people are starting to, and this is part of the attack on masculinity, because it's majority of these are boys that are confused. And because masculinity is being denigrated so strongly, they think, I'm a child of a single mother, I'm raised in a school by all women around me, they all talk bad about masculinity all the time, I don't want to be associated with this, I don't know what it is, like the BBC reporter earlier, I don't know what masculinity is, but I don't like it. And they're driven away from their nature. And over time, your programming can start to affects everything, affects how you behave, and that will start to affect you biologically as well. And it will really cause you a lot of problems, and it's not going to bring people happiness. Real happiness is found in traditional gender roles for the vast majority of people. There are some women who aren't interested in getting married. There are some men who aren't interested in getting married. There are people who want to have other types of adventures in their life.
And that's fine.
That's fine.
And I'm totally supportive of that, too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of uncovering your true authentic self. And if that means you're a woman who doesn't want to get married and have children, please don't sequester yourself and become a recluse. You will be a very unhappy 50-year-old woman with nobody in your life.
Yeah, and don't attack those who do want to get married and have kids. You'll find in the end you'll be old with nobody around you. If you support people who do want to have children, if you help out with family of your family, you help out with your extended family, you're going to be loved in your old age. I had an aunt, and I don't know if it was biological reasons or by choice. There was always that question. They never had children. And when she was old and in the hospital, who visited her was myself and my brother and my family. We visited her, and she was actually a great aunt. And so she never had any children, and the last third of her life, it was her grandnieces and nephews who looked after her. And we treated her like she was an extra grandmother.
Right.
So it is important to make that connection with other families. And if you're a man, you need to get in touch with your masculinity. For a lot of women, they think they don't want to have children, or they don't want a traditional gender role because they don't believe it's attainable for them. I'm so surprised how often the better people tend to see themselves as far less than they really are. People don't have a very good viewpoint of themselves. People who are absolutely terrible have this wonderful elevated viewpoint of themselves, and people who are fantastic have terrible viewpoints sometimes, terrible impression of themselves. And when women learn how to be feminine, or when men learn how to be masculine, they start to enjoy it. They start to realize it makes them happy, and then often their goals in life changes. That's great if you're in your 20s and 30s, but don't wait till you're old to do it. Do it as young as you can.
And this lack of security in children and adults is I'm going to blame the women here. If moms were home to nurture and support and teach and educate, I know it is so hard to do that when you're a working mom. If you're working full time and having children, you're rushing them to daycare. Who's raising your kids? I don't know. You do your work job. You come home, you're exhausted. If you're smart and you plan, maybe you've got a crock pot going, so at least that's done. But the energy that it takes to nurture and grow a wonderful human being, it's full-time work. And so something has to go. And guess what? It's not the job, because your boss is going to demand your time and energy. The children don't, really. You can ignore them if you choose. You can say, go put on the TV and play a video game.
Yeah.
Here's this TV dinner, or more McDonald's, a Burger King, and all of that. And that's what we have going. And we're not raising people anymore. They're raising themselves. And so they see themselves through this distorted social media, and why don't I look like that in real life through that filter? I'm a horrible person because I don't look like the Kardashians or, some person on a video game. Like, I've had people say that they wish that they look more cartoon-like in real life.
Or even why can't I accomplish anything? Because one of the, an active mother, she's going to be, active means you don't just stand there and look at them. That's not what paying attention to them means. Paying attention to them means doing things with them, painting with them, sculpting with them, reading with them, taking them outside and letting them practice jumping around and running around on playgrounds and enjoying themselves and being children. Especially if you live in a city, if you live in the country, I know this. I grew up had a very large backyard, and to some degree, you could entertain yourself for hours outside playing in the trees and chasing frogs and stuff. But if you live in the city, it's a lot more work to be a parent in the city. You can't just let your children run around. Even if it's a safer city, they're going to get run over. You have to, you have to take them out to activities and do things with them and interact with them in ways that are going to teach them to have self-confidence, teach them who they are. You got to have conversations with them, stimulate their mental processes. And if you do that, they're going to develop into people that can become who they are, become the true them, their true selves. And I think the real key to this is that men have to be men, women have to be women. And if you were raised not knowing what is what, you have to go and seek out the solutions. Go and look for it.
That's what's happening to so many now, being able to self-identify your child's gender. How about that?
Yeah.
That's happening here in the U.S., by the way.
Yeah, this is. I think we're hitting a kind of peak degeneracy, and average people are. Well, first of all, there's pushback from people like yourselves, from people like me. There are people pushing back very hard on this subject, and the general public is not okay with this stuff. Most people are not okay with it. Most people, despite the billions of dollars of propaganda, most women want to be women, most men want to be men. They may not know how. They need help to know how. Mm-hmm. But nothing will overcome all this biology that we've got going.
And for women, all it is, it's about letting go. And it's the most freeing thing when you finally decide you're going to let go and embrace this side of you.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the same for men, I don't know.
For men, a lot of it is about taking personal responsibility. Okay. It's a kind of stoicism where men have to... The real key to becoming a man is taking personal responsibility. The second part is to stop doing things that make you weak. So stop identifying yourself as a failure and say, I will be better. I could be better. Where I am now is not where I should be, so I'm going to make changes. And taking personal responsibility that I'm going to go look for help, but it's up to me to actually make the change. Yeah. It's amazing how much people can change. I have I have clients that if you see a picture of them 10 years ago, they weren't my client back then, they only more recently, but if you see the picture of them 10 years ago and you see the picture of them now, you hardly know that it's the same person. They've gone from overweight, grumpy, which you could see in their face, a deep dissatisfaction with life, weak and afraid, and now they are strong and masculine and confident, and everything about them has changed. It's completely possible to change your life.
Right, and they'll be so much happier when they do that. Like, I'll never understand why a woman would want to go to a work environment. I understand if you have to provide for a family. I'm not talking about that, but if you're just starting off, why you would want to trade a homey atmosphere for the fluorescent lights of an office building.
And a lot of times
for a paycheck.
Well, the lie that's held out to women is that you're going to be, don't you want to contribute to society? Don't you want to do something important?
What I heard was, you're better than this, Jen.
Yeah, you're better than shaping the next generation of humanity.
Yeah, in the 90s, when multi-level marketing came on board, that was another way the family's been attacked by MLMs, trying to take women out of the home, and this lie of making tons of money. It was a Mary Kay consultant who said to me, I was home watching children, happy. We had one car. We didn't go on vacations. We lived on a budget. I shopped at Aldi. I did some babysitting to make cash money for groceries. We made it work. And she said, Jenny, you're so smart. You're so much better than this. And I said, no, I think this is exactly where I need to be, because I knew then that that's where I wanted to be. And it was only until the divorce that I had to work. And that was because I married the wrong guy the first time around. So my goal, a lot of my students are in that 25 to 35 year range. So they haven't married yet and they're looking for. So it's so great to be able to help them. But the sadder cases are the 35 and over women who are lied to by feminism. They're not married. They have no kids. They don't even like their jobs. Of course, you don't have the corner office. That's a very small percentage of people who can put in the time and energy to get there in career. And if you want a family, that's just almost impossible to have that.
Well, for most people, your job is, I love my job. I love helping people. I think you probably do too. But
we're very lucky.
Well, it's not lucky. We made a series of tough decisions, and in some cases, informed by painful previous life choices in order to get where we are. We made sacrifices to get where we are. But for most people, their job will never be something they enjoy. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. And if you talk to men about this, my job is terrible, but it puts food on the table. It pays the mortgage. And I could never understand why women were like, wow, that just seems great. I want to join. How can I get on some of that?
Right.
And I think what it is men have a tendency, we'll tell to another man, oh yeah, my job is terrible, I hate it. But to our wives, we'll come home and we'll say, because we don't want them to worry about us. We'll come home and say, oh yeah, it was great. Yeah, everything's good. Everything's great. Because we don't want to show weakness in front of them so that they are worried about us while we're out at work. Everything is, to them, it's all handled. Don't worry, dear. I got it all. I'm handling it. And I'm not saying that men should start complaining to their wives, but I think men need to talk with their daughters and say, yeah, the workplace isn't all it's cracked up to be, and even to their sons, to be honest with them, that sometimes work is a slog. And sometimes it's not what you want.
Work is very hard, and that's why you need to find the right kind of woman to support you through this life.
If it wasn't hard, they wouldn't have to pay you for you to go there. You'd go there for fun.
Exactly.
And usually the better paid you are is because the job is less interesting or less is harder.
Less people are willing to do it. What happens when people, women start living fascinating womanhood, and if you're interested in a woman listening to this, if you need help in figuring out how to transition from working full-time to home or working part-time, I'm sure Noah can help. We have lots of ideas in Fascinating Womanhood how to make this transition. But once you do in your home, creating this atmosphere and supporting him in his work, all of the women's husbands make more money now. When you start making less, there might be a period of difficulty, but he's free now to really focus 100% on his role in the home and at work. And I've seen men make 3-4 times the amount that they did when their wife was working full time.
Yes, and this is something too that as an employer, you know, I've had businesses with up to 50 employees that I ran, and as an employer, if I had 2 employees and one of them was like, I'm the only income in my family, and I need someone to appoint and they're roughly equal, I'm going to pick the guy that's got a family to support because he's not going to screw around. He can't lose that job.
Yep.
He's going to make sure he does it perfectly. He's going to be the consummate professional. Whereas the other guy, you know, if he loses the job, he'll go on welfare for a bit and his wife will keep working and he'll find another job.
Oh dear. I have seen that far too many times. And that is the saddest state for a man as well.
Yeah.
And she's miserable working all the time and he feels like, well, she doesn't need me anyway. And he's stuck in Netflix reruns over and over again, just getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And the balance is off there. But
well, and almost always families where the wife is working, especially full time, the dietary situation of the family is terrible, and that's going to make a big difference for a man. You know, men are out in heavy competition with each other. You want to be the man that wins that competition. That means you have to be the man that does maybe only 2 or 3% better than the other men. You don't have to necessarily be twice as good. And to win that competition might be the difference between I'm eating good, healthy meals and I come home and I don't have to, you know, take out garbage and clean the dishes and vacuum the house because my wife has all that done. I come home, if I'm tired, I go to bed, you know. And when you know your wife has all these things done, when you know my son is sick and he's suffering, but he's okay, mom's got him.
Yep.
My wife's got him. She's taking care of him. You don't worry about that at work. That means you're 100% in the game when you're at work. And the key to being competitive is focus. It's getting in the flow and focusing. And that's not possible for men who don't know what's happening at home. They have no idea whether, you know, what they are. The worst, they know for sure things are being neglected. They know their children are unhappy.
And they're going to come home to a hot mess, you know, and she's exhausted because she's just running the door as well. No dinner, and of course that's when the fast food comes in, and that doesn't give you energy. I mean, hello, obesity crisis all over the world now, not just the U.S. It's everywhere now.
And people that try to do this around the late 30s, early 40s, they hit a wall.
Yeah.
And there's either a divorce,
yeah,
or a mental breakdown, or a mental breakdown followed by a divorce. But it's not pretty. So you think oh yeah, everything's working out great. I'm in my late 20s. This is great. I can do this forever. Yeah, you can't do it for very much longer. You need right now, contact me or contact Jennifer. You need to find out how you can get out of that rat race and create something sustainable. It is not sustainable in the long term. Women who have to work because they don't have a choice, they have to do what they have to do. But for most women, it is a choice and they don't even know it's a choice. If you're not sure if you can get out, even if you think it's probably not possible, contact us. I bet you we could figure out how to get you out of it.
We probably can.
Yeah.
I would love to get some live callers on sometime.
Yeah, we should do that sometime. Take some live callers, and or even we have to find a good time to do it where they can.
And we can do like a he said, she said, and you know we'll both help them through this because there is a way that women you can stay home. You have so much more time to be frugal if
Yes.
you're not working. You don't need all this stuff, the lunches out and the outfits and all of that. It's just such a simpler life.
Mm-hmm. And even if you have to work, there are better choices than a 9-to-5 job at an office. There are things you can do. I know women who they would bake cakes and sell them to their friends, so for birthday cakes and things like that. Other women, they would make lunch for single guys that didn't have a wife to make lunch for them. And every morning, the guys on their way to work, they'd drop by, and the lunches would be on the front porch, and they'd just pay each week, and there'd be lunches there for them. And they drop the dishes off, reusable lunch boxes and stuff, drop them off in the evening on the way home. She'd take them in and wash them up and put soup and whatever it was in for the next day. There are options to bring in that extra cash. You said you did babysitting. There are options to do that. The reality is that you might go through a little winter of discontent when you first start.
Yep.
But as you mentioned, your husband's going to earn more. He's going to start earning more. In fact, the moment that you are at home, he should be out, and I can help him figure that out, how to do it. He should be out talking to his boss and negotiating a raise. I love this book. It's Getting to Yes. It's all about negotiating. This is the Bible of negotiation, and men need to know the tactics that are in there so that they can make sure they're being properly valued by their employer. Surprisingly, many employers, they know about this higher productivity for men who have stay-at-home wives. This used to be, back in before the politically correct days, this used to be something that employers specifically looked for. If your wife was working, they'd be a little suspicious of you. Maybe you're going to get divorced and be a total wreck for a few years and not be able to work hardly. And so they would look for men. We see this in the old movies, the Leave It to Beaver, where he'd bring his boss home and the wife would make a big meal. And the boss wanted to see, do you have a cohesive family unit at home? Because if you can't run your home, how can you run a department of our company?
Right. It used to be a status symbol for women to get married. That was the goal.
Yep.
Even if you went to school.
It was a status symbol for men to have a stay-at-home wife. And it was a status symbol for women to be able to stay at home and have a wonderful home that they could look after and take care of. And I do think, like I said, I think we've hit the peak of feminism. It's gotten to the point where they've become a ridiculous parody of themselves.
It is ridiculous.
And young women will reject it. But they're going to reject it for what?
Yeah.
They're going to reject it for what? We have to provide the what comes next. The what comes next is fascinating women and masculine men. Mm-hmm. I think this is a great spot to stop for today.
Can I share the one little quote?
Please do.
Just to end it up. This comes from Waller Newell from his book. He wrote a book called Tyrants, A History of Power, Injustice, and Terror. I know that sounds fierce. It says, we don't need to reinvent manliness. We only need to will ourselves, he's speaking to men, by the way, we only need to will ourselves to wake up from the bad dream of the last few generations and reclaim it in order to extend and enrich that tradition under the formidable demands of the present. We don't need to reinvent manliness. I love that.
Yeah.
Wake up from the bad dream. So thank you, Noah, for talking, allowing me to talk to you about this very important topic.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, for giving us the woman's side of how you appreciate masculinity and how it can be promoted in the 21st century. I'm looking forward to talking to you again another time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Noah. Bye-bye.
I'd like to encourage you to subscribe to this channel and join us on smv4k.com. The real magic happens when you get one-on-one coaching, and on our website we have information about how you can get coaching. Please share this message on your social media